cry like a baby. Why are you crying like a girl? Shh. Do you hear this often? Or have you heard anyone saying this? So, today we are talking on the third episode of emotional abuse. And our special guest, Aarti, who is a domestic abuse coach, is a survivor and is here to demystify many of the things that you might be surprised to know. She is here with facts and the things that has been researched and is less talked about. Yes, we are talking about demystifying male emotional abuse. Let's invite Aarti and hear her what is it and how is it different. Hello 365 billions. How are you? Hi Aarti.
Hi, Suchi. Good evening again.
Good
Love to come
evening.
back on Mondays, 7 p.m. with you.
Same here, dear. And today we are on our third episode of discussing emotional abuse and helping our audience to be more aware of it.
Yes, we are. And very interesting aspect, very unique dimension, and raring to go. And would love to answer questions from our audience as well whenever they pop up, because, like you mentioned, there will be surprises. So
Of
let's
course.
resolve them for everyone. Yes.
So, Aarti, let's begin this. Today, I am very curious because, haven't gone through the research, haven't understood the facts and all, and there's so much different about what we generally perceive as a human being. So in our first episode, we already had discussion about emotional abuse as a general understanding of it, and we discussed about child abuse, and
Yes.
you have given us so many points to understand how it would be very difficult for a child who is undergoing an abuse and how does it affect and the circumstances and the environment. More of the passive abuse that we had discussed. So
Yes.
let's talk about adults today. And in adults, let's discuss how is it gender based and especially do men undergo emotional abuse?
Righto. Thank you for the summary of the previous episodes that we've had, Suchi. There have been a lot of interesting discussions in all of those. And like I said, looking forward to this one as well. Yes, men do go through abuse and specifically emotional abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Short answer to a straightforward question. Yes, that happens the world over. But let's dig deeper into it.
Sure.
We've talked about emotional abuse before, as our audience knows as well. Emotional abuse itself has very many definitions. So let's go over one so that we refresh the memory of our audience and help the newcomers here to understand this dimension of abuse better. So research says that emotional abuse is the systematic diminishing and destroying of the inner self by one person in a relationship of the other person in that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about inner self, we essentially mean feelings and thoughts which cannot be quantified. They can
Mm-hmm.
only be observed, they can only be appreciated, they can only be acknowledged, and they can only be solutionized if the abuse is put forth as a problem.
Okay.
So we're looking at emotional abuse as a very simple definition. And we also touched upon the fact that men do go through it. Let me take a step back. Emotional
Okay.
abuse is experienced not just by women, not just by men, but all genders concerned. We
Mm-hmm.
see genders as well. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Again, that brings us to one very important aspect of understanding abuse in general, whether it is physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, financial, any other form. Abuse is not a gender issue. It is made out to be a gender issue because of the kind of reporting of issues in different countries, and specifically in a country like India, where, yes, statistically, women do go through more abuse and report more abuse. But we
Okay.
can't hide away from the fact that men do too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, let's take a wider view of this. If we go by some statistics to get an appreciation, a slight appreciation, just touching the surface of data. In India, as we know, there are many states, and one state-specific study has been conducted in the state of Haryana, which is in northwestern India. It says that 51% of men have been abused at least once in their lifetime by their intimate partners or spouses. And this study was conducted amongst 10,000 men in the state of Haryana in
Oh
2020,
my
as
God.
recent as about a year ago.
Oh
51%.
my,
Okay.
oh my God.
Uh, Going cross border, in the US, some of the research says that 1 in 3 women undergo abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking about this, we're talking about an entire gamut of abuse. So please take note, we're not talking
Mm-hmm.
just about emotional abuse, but we're trying to get a sense of the reality of what men go through. Okay? Doesn't matter what the kind of abuse it may be. So coming back to US, 1 in 3 women go through abuse. 1 in 4 men go through abuse. So you see the gap is not too much.
Actually.
Okay? Coming back to India. If we
Mm-hmm.
quantify on a more national level, 2019 research said that 3 crore men may be undergoing abuse. And for our
Mm-hmm.
international audience, 3 crore equivalent to 30 million.
Okay. So,
So there is a vastness to this subject that men
mhm.
do undergo abuse and emotional abuse, because it is not as much researched, it cannot be quantified as much, although there is ongoing research around that too. The topic gets shoved under the carpet very easily.
Okay.
And that's why we are here to raise awareness about it.
Okay. So, Aarti, can you give me few, basics about why is it so that, we talk about women being abused emotionally, but whatsoever, why not about men being, it's not the topic. And I think, so, is it a taboo or what is the reason behind that people do not open up or it's not being spoken about?
Yes, Suji, agree with you, and this is what typically happens. A taboo, and anytime we talk about a taboo, is usually associated with a culture. Otherwise, it's not a taboo, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it starts. Taboo is still something that we know as an adult. It's a taboo, so we don't
Mm-hmm.
talk about it. It's a taboo, so we don't do it. It's a taboo, so we don't refer to it. Things like that. How does it become a taboo? It becomes a taboo because of conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
See, we have established that both men and women can go through abuse, and specifically emotional abuse, yes. But why do men not speak about it? It's because of a difference in their conditioning, especially. And I've said that a few times before in similar discussions, and I can't emphasize that enough, especially in a patriarchal society like India. The conditioning is that chup raho, kuch bolo mat. That is the kind of conditioning you can see with a lot of women. But with men, for the same or similar kind of incident of abuse, it would be something like, "Tum kamzor ho kya? Are you weak? That
Mm-hmm.
you're making a fuss out of this little comment that somebody made on you." Or so basically, it starts with not acknowledging your feelings. In fact, invalidating feelings. So
Mm-hmm.
the taboo is generated by the culture. It wouldn't have been a taboo had we not considered it in conditioning. I believe so. So effectively, it's are you weak? Are you a sissy? You're not supposed to cry, or not. But what you are supposed to be is tough.
Right.
So what
Yeah.
happens is conditioning में हमारा क्या होता है कि you can be tough, but that can be taught to a woman as well. However, why this toughness is important? Because in a patriarchal society, the man becomes the bread winner or the one who carries the mantle forward of a family or takes major responsibilities. Therefore, he is supposed to be tough. The toughness is supposed to be exhibited to the society, family, society, friends, community, etc. That toughness takes the man away from his own reality.
Okay. Right.
That they are a human being. It's Maslow's theory, right? Maslow's theory. You're meant to, have your needs fulfilled: food, shelter, biological, etc. And then there is an emotional need as well. So by telling a man that he is meant to be tough, you're taking away a reality also that you're not meant to express your feelings and thoughts. Come what may. Now, why is another reason why a man is expected to be tough is because traditionally we are seeing men in a lot of job roles, right? Men in a lot of high-profile job roles, even blue-collar workers, for that matter. At the end of the day, men are supposed to carry the mantle of a lot of things. So the toughness is actually very helpful in a workplace environment.
Absolutely.
But the distinction is not created that a man is a man is a man. At the end of the day, he's a human being and he may have his feelings and thoughts and he has a right to express them. Now, when an abuse is inflicted on a man, that's where the complication starts. That abuse, as we all know, has to be a pattern to be called an abuse. But if the man feels diminished and destroyed in his feelings and thoughts from what he's receiving as abuse, where is he going to vent it? So, it just sort of keep getting bottled up for how much ever amount of time. So this taboo is that you are not supposed to talk about it.
And is it, see, because women are also seeing that men are not supposed to cry, men should be tough, or they should take or the whole and sole responsibility of the family, and from the childhood they are not being allowed to show their emotions. So when they come into their intimate relationship, they behave in a similar fashion. But women also are not aware of the fact of how to treat the men. They think that, okay, the men I'm thinking must and should comes, and they also react and respond in probably unaware fashion.
Yeah, absolutely right, Suchi, because the women are also coming from the same conditioning or cultural environment, right? They are supposed to look at their man as a tough guy. They're supposed to look at the man with certain expectations and all of that. A lot of this is conditioning. So I'm coming with my conditioning into a relationship, you're coming with yours, and then suddenly there is a power imbalance if I decide that my personality can start to dominate you in different ways, or I am fulfilling my own needs by abusing you. There's a dimension to that too.
Please speak more on this sentence that you're saying now.
Sure. So if a person happens to be dominant by nature or feels powerful or whatever it is, and the other person, since we're talking about intimate relationships, of a deep romantic relationship, a spousal relationship or something like that, we are aware of a lot of personality traits of someone we have been with for some time. But there are also people who accept power imbalances. They're happy with that. However, when the person knows that this did not either exist, I did not know about it, or suddenly the personalities have changed, and you, out of love, affection, faith, or trust in the relationship, want to start to adjust, that happens. For maybe some time, but depending on the understanding of the partners, they may adjust, or the person who is feeling abused may adjust. In fact, The person who is receiving abuse may not even consider as abuse. That reality or that realization dawns in much later. So a person who is abusing doesn't have to be of a dominant personality. The person, specifically addressing your question, the person who is also having a lack of self-worth or lack of confidence finds an easy target to abuse their intimate partner, to
Okay.
raise their own confidence. So,
Okay.
see, there are personality issues with abusers. So, we're not going
And
into that. That's more psychological, as an analysis in nature. We're not going into that. But for the one who is receiving the abuse, they may not always be in a relationship where the person is dominant or is coming
mm,
from a dominant place,
okay.
has been raised like that. No, it may actually be someone who is looking for confidence and just doing that because that person is available to them 24/7.
Okay. Okay. So when we are talking about men being emotionally abused and women being emotionally abused, as you have already said, emotional abuse is emotional abuse, whether it is in any gender. But do is there any difference, or it is all similar? How do men take it?
How do men take it? You mean in terms of the effect?
Yes.
In terms of
How
the
do men
effect?
take the emotional abuse? Do they handle it well on all those? No.
Hmm. So, this is related to what we said earlier that men would have a tendency to brush it under the carpet. Men would have a tendency to probably prolong their experience of it. Maybe dependent on their conditioning, they don't open up because of family expectations, because of the reputation of the in the family, and because of lack of outside support as well. Let's assume that a man, is affected and they feel that they need external support. There is a lack of support compared to what women would be able to access in terms of
Mhm.
emotional abuse. So the effects on them may actually be more deep set. Unfortunately, we are constrained by lack of data on this. But we can assume right now that the effects are more deep set because they won't speak or they would prolong their agony in the name of a seemingly healthy relationship. Or all of these reasons, like maintaining a family reputation, they feel a very high sense of shame and guilt that perhaps they are responsible for the spouse's happiness. They are not able to fulfill that happiness, and therefore it's okay to receive it. But they're just trying to make an argument out of it in their own head. The
Okay.
reality is that they may suffer from guilt and shame of not being able to do something for the spouse. They may
Mhm.
be suffering from guilt and shame of not being meeting the expectations of the spouse. One of the examples of this could be a woman may end up telling a man, "You are not as smart as, you have a very big
Mhm.
belly, you are not as attractive as, or you just too short." Anything that is being commented upon for the traits of a man. Whereas in
Mhm.
the earlier time that you were in the relationship, you may have accepted the person as they are, but over a period of time, you find that their traits don't meet your expectations. And if
Mhm.
this comparison keeps going on, or this criticism keeps going on, it forms a huge expectation deficit between the man and the woman.
Okay.
Another way is to mirror. So when a person mirrors the other person's behavior, for example, the woman may, again, from the objective or intention of abusing the man, keeping them under their control, they may just mirror and they say that, but I did this because I thought it would be good for you. Or you are doing this because you think it's good for me, but it's not good for me. See, what happens is that mirroring um, makes the person feel that they've actually acted that way, whereas they have not.
Mhm.
Mirroring is also attached to confusing or circular arguments. okay, not coming to the conclusion of any argument, trying to take a person round and round, and literally messing up their thinking at that point in time, and being very demanding unreasonably. Now, one may say that this could be more in the realm of asking for shopping, or asking for this, or asking for that. But all of this is interconnected. If you are demanding beyond a point, knowing very well the situation of that man, it could be demanding sexually, demanding financially, demanding anything that is beyond the person's giving capacity
Hmm.
as a pattern, is also abuse. And
Okay.
because of this patriarchal mismatch, this kind of
Mhm.
a up and down relationship between a man and a woman, the woman is also conditioned to think that she can expect anything from her husband or a spouse or an intimate partner.
Okay.
So that expectation mismatch can easily lead into abuse. So the man
Mhm.
may suffer from fear as well, because he may be continuously threatened. I'm going to pack my bags and leave. मैं तो घर छोड़ के चली जाऊंगी. Whereas the woman will not do that.
Hmm.
The woman who is thinking like this and threatening like this is actually becoming fake in her commitment to it. She's doing it to threaten the man or bring that fear that, look, you will lose me if you don't do this. And this
Hmm.
keeps happening. Then the person, like the man also feels that I will lose a relationship, so let me just do that small thing that she's asking me. Whereas doing that
Mhm.
small thing also may be beyond his capacity.
Mhm.
Abuse to a man may also comprise um, taking him away from fulfilling his sexual needs.
Mhm.
Okay, so that is also abuse. That is emotional abuse. So all of this builds up in a man, and they get affected by being confused, by feeling manipulated, by feeling threatened, by feeling fearful, obviously feeling a lack of self-worth and lack of confidence.
Okay. So we have generalized the topic on the intimate relationship between the spouses. But in general, like we were talking about child being abused, so an adult being abused by the parents, it's now not a parent relationship, but now adults being abused. And so, how do we talk on that note?
Can you please repeat that question?
Say, for example, the child who had been abused since the childhood by their parents and all, now is an adult person, and still the abuse is going on. It is also the
Hmm.
part of the uh, relationship, because
Hmm.
तुम अच्छा नहीं कर सकते हो, तुमसे कुछ नहीं होगा. All these
Hmm.
sentences are also part and being spoken, and is what I think is also an emotional abuse, where you are
Oh
trying
yes.
to say the man
Oh
that
yes.
you're
Yes.
capable of creating the
Correct.
doubt
Absolutely
inside the man.
correct. Yeah. Absolutely correct. And thanks for bringing that topic in, Suchi. Because any young man, a youth who grows up witnessing abuse in the family as a domestic abuse to either one of their parents, or grows up being abused, will have certain ways of looking at life in adulthood, certain ways of approaching life in adulthood. They may be going through a lack of self-worth, massively, and this thing will go on in their head every time they have to make a decision or start something new or take a risk or be in a relationship themselves. Am I worth it? Can I do it? A lot of self-belief issues and
Mm-hmm.
very, very prolonged decision making, and sometimes not making a decision at all because um, तुम ऐसा नहीं कर सकते, तुम you're not good enough, things like that leave an imprint on the person's psyche for the longest time, especially if they're going from
Mm-hmm.
childhood. And
And
yes, if
it's
we are
I
saying this is what happening to men, this can happen from parents, from spouses, from grandparents, from uncles and aunts, from older siblings. So yes, a young man can be affected by anyone.
Yeah, and also because of all these things, and Again, the same thing goes back to you need to be tough. The man
Mm.
psychology said, okay, no, I am hearing this, I am tough, I need not talk about it. And not talking about it creates the whole havoc in that individual's life. And to what extent would you like to add on something more, that to what extent does it affects a man? Any other points that you would like to add on it?
So, in what other way it affects a man? Well, we're looking at a lot of similarities in the effects between a man and a woman. I think the more important aspect would be to look at it, how can they deal with it?
Okay, please go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah, the reason why I
We
say
had
that
a
is
question also
sure,
from
sure.
a
Let's take that question. Let's take that question.
uh, what should do a person if he's facing this? So you are going to talk about this point only. So I said, okay, the person 365 billions that asked the same question. How should a person do if he's facing? What should a person do if she's facing it?
Right. Okay. Thank you for those questions, 365 billion, and someone else who asked this as well. We are actually jumping into that. That how do you deal with it? So, if you have identified as a man that you are going through some tough times in your relationship, it is related to what you're hearing, what you're experiencing in your intimate relationship. Sit up and take notice of the fact, acknowledge it. Don't try to brush it away in the first place. Acknowledge it. And don't confuse it with the feeling that, oh, I was meant to be tough. I'm not supposed to say this. Am I weak if I am understanding this as abuse? Am I a sissy? Am I allowed to cry? Before even you approach a second person about it, you might have those many self doubts that you might have to travel through as a man, because it's so much more difficult for a man to go and talk about it, even with his male friends. Must be
Hmm.
so difficult.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay? So acknowledge that first for yourself. Be comfortable with the fact that, okay, now I know that this may potentially be the problem.
Hmm.
So if you are feeling so constrained in a relationship, look for external help. Now, external help comes in different ways for men as much as it comes for women, but they are far more restricted for men. Now, if I go to the simplest of the ways would be to talk to a person you trust, somebody who will keep your facts with you and is able to at least listen, if not help straight away. Could be a friend, could be an uncle and aunt. Potentially, somebody from outside the family would be better because they might have an objective view about what you may be experiencing. The second level of this could be to again, yes, touch upon your friends if you're comfortable, because if you go through these feelings that I will be judged, then again you have very selected people that
Okay.
you can trust to go to, because you
Right.
don't want to be judged and you don't want to show your weak side to your male friends. That's a very big aspect of women. As you know, Suchi, a lot of us women find it very easy to talk to other women,
Once
and
we
many
trust
more
the
women.
women, we probably get vulnerable to the women. But
Yes.
yes, for the men, being vulnerable to another man is, I think it might not be an easy task to do.
Absolutely, Suchi. Thanks for using that word. I was looking for that word. Being vulnerable to another man, let alone a woman, being vulnerable to another man itself would, crash their social image. So be ready to talk to somebody who you feel would be non-judgmental about it. Beyond all of these personal relationships, you can try and go through some external help, like using support groups, using
Hmm.
NGOs, talking to them. Unfortunately, in India, we have just a handful of NGOs which support men who are abused. Yes, there are NGOs who support, but there are very few. And you can DM me if you wish to know how you want to get helped. I can share you names of those. But that itself goes to say that this is such a nascent topic in India. Women hotlines are available for help. There's a lot that you can seek out as help, but NGOs for men are very few when it comes to domestic abuse.
Hmm.
But there are NGOs. We're talking about it today, and we know that there are
Okay.
NGOs. Another level of support could be to actually go to a coach and seek an understanding, a clarity, or a validation about what you're going through. If the problem
Mm-hmm.
needs medical advice much deeper, if the problem needs a medication, the coach may themselves suggest or refer you to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. But even before that stage comes in, you can always approach a coach and talk to them about it. And don't worry about even the gender of the coach, because coaches are trained. I mean, unless they have a personal preference of only having their coaches as men or women, coaches are trained. So if you were to, as a man, approach a woman coach, it's completely all right. It's the topic that's important more than your gender.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way of looking at it. Another end of the spectrum is if you're going legal on any legal processes, and for here again, lawyers, trained lawyers, professional lawyers are best to advise. But one must be aware that there is a Domestic Violence Act in India, and under that act, there are only women who are supported. Yes, so men would not find refuge under that act.
That is another shocking fact that you're
Yeah.
sharing.
Didn't we say there were going to be surprises today? So legally, you might want to verify these facts about the act, especially if it's been amended. But clearly, until the time we checked last, men are not included in that act, because actually, the way it reads or the way it's interpreted is that only men are liable for cruelty to women, not the
Mm-hmm.
other way around, as far as the act is concerned. So the man obviously does not have any legal recourse for a problem like this. So you have a spectrum of advice support groups. However, do this well in time before you stretch or procrastinate on the problem. It's because one of the things that research also says is that, like we were just discussing, Suchi, even if we are meant to be in the same relationship for whatever reasons that are important to us, you and I can talk to each other. We can still find communities because women know this problem exists, and women can speak to each other if they find comfort in friends or something. Women can speak, period. Men find comfort in a lot of behavioral changes, which is taking recourse to drug or alcohol abuse, substance abuse in general.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be cognizant of the fact that if you observe somebody who has been under this kind of a spell of substance abuse, that is only part of the problem, is only a symptom of some problem that the person may be going through. You might not find a lot of women taking recourse to substance abuse, but men may. Because of this reason, it's a taboo. I can't talk about it. I don't have a solution. I don't want to leave the relationships. Then what do? I drink it away.
Numbing
Sometimes,
themselves.
yeah, numbing themselves.
Okay. So, Aarti, before I go ahead, do you take male as your client for if they come for an emotional abuse?
Yes, I very much do. I have been speaking with men around the abuse that they've gone through. And one of the examples I have is that one gentleman is going through a post separation abuse where the lady in question, his spouse, is dragging the legal process, and he's going through a lot of emotional trauma because of that. And that emotional trauma, the prolonging, also affects his finances, his attention to his work, his attention to the rest of the family. Thankfully, they don't have children right now. So we're, at least the children, the unborn children, are saved from this. But this is a very pertinent example of how the woman is abusing the man while she was in the marriage and while she's separated as well. So yes, I do take on males as my coaches if we are a coaching fit, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you for that information, Aarti. Going ahead now, first and foremost, wherever we understand awareness is the key. Now, if you are understanding that you are feeling worthless in any form because someone is speaking something to you and you have kept that in your heart, mind, probably you have undergone emotional abuse. So be aware of this fact. That is something very key important. And to understand it deeply, you can view other videos or interact with any of us. Going ahead with this, Arti, if someone who is still hesitant in
Hmm.
approaching a woman, let this video help them to get into that, surface of having that courage.
Yes.
What can they do on their own if they are now aware of it, that they have undergone this emotional abuse? What is first small step as a man that they can do at present to just start? Just give them a boost of courage to at least approach someone.
Okay. Very important question, Suchi, because that's what we're here for. Raise the awareness and tell people that it is easy to access help and help is available. You are not alone. Hashtag you are not alone and hashtag you are not alone. That's all I could say because if this video does help develop that courage amongst our audience, especially the male audience, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a small step towards the larger direction of keeping ourselves as a community, as a society, as a nation abuse free. So you are not alone, and focus on self care. Maybe your own diagnosis about emotional abuse may not be a diagnosis. Maybe it's just the beginning of some awareness. So go ahead and get it diagnosed, get an understanding of what you're going through. And while you have started to become aware, focus on self-care. You may not be able to change your physical and emotional environment as much, but focusing on self-care, looking more inwards, small practices like even being grateful for what you have or meditating, if you are a religious or a spiritual person, understand some practices which might start to help you. These are intermittent steps before you start to get some external help. I hope that
And
helps, Suchi.
yes, and absolutely the points which you said is would help a person, and it will definitely help even to gain a courage to talk to someone and approach someone for the external help. Because these basic requirements, even though if the person approaches, need to take care. We will definitely recommend them to start with these basics. So if you are feeling that should I not, whether or not, first and foremost, the coaches are one. You go to any coach, they won't judge you. That's the point you have to put into your mind, because it is so difficult to approach and speak up. So this is something which needs to be highlighted. Coaches won't judge you. And you approach any coach, you interact with them, the energy with which you will interact, you will really understand that whether you're comfortable in speaking or not. So interaction will definitely help you to go ahead and decide to go with the coach. And uh, Aarti, before we get to the closure and talking about the future, what we are going to do, anything
Sure.
before the end you want to add anything?
Hmm. I just want to repeat that. I want to emphasize that you are not alone. Hashtag you are not alone because the very fact that we are having this discussion today, Suchi, two women are having this discussion without any kind of inhibition about the topic, about what to say about it. We didn't plan it either, as you know, and all of this is coming straight from the heart because we believe in it. And we want you to know as an audience that if you believe in a coach, if you believe that you have a problem and you believe that there is a solution to that problem, please seek help. Because this is the beauty of this discussion, that raising awareness is helping you probably feel, think, understand this problem differently from what you were thinking about it 40 minutes ago.
Absolutely.
So that's it, Suchi, from me.
Audiences, we are waiting for your questions. If any question you have up until now, for whatever you have gone through the discussions, you can put it today, or you can DM Aarti, you can DM me. We will be answering your questions. We may take the question answer on another session if required. And we would like to go further for emotional abuse, deep discussions, probably in our next episode, Aarti.
Yes, we will go into deeper discussions in our next episode, and we will have a surprise for our guests, so we won't announce it now. Tune in.
Sure. Tune in. Uh, we can wait for a minute if someone is typing or any.
Yeah, somebody has left a beautiful comment for you, Suchi. आपको मम्मी के जैसे रिस्पेक्ट करता हूँ. Raj_A1994. That's
Thank
beautiful.
you, Raj_A. Okay, just Suchi ma'am, please follow back. You're from, I'm from Mumbai. आपको मम्मी के जैसा रिस्पेक्ट करता हूँ. Thank you, Suchi mummy. Thank you. God bless you. So blessings to everyone who have joined today. Thank you for all your support and encouragement and helping us to create this awareness. Your presence is highly appreciated. So thank you, Aarti, for sharing the insights and just, when we speak up, that it is something that is really common. And although not commonly spoken about, but still it's common. So don't feel that you are alone. Don't feel it all. People are there ready to support you, and it's now take that step. Join us, stay tuned. Thank you, Sadia. Thank you, Manali. Thank you, Mansi. Thank you, Sunil. Okay.
Thank you, Suchi, for giving me this platform
Thank
as
you,
usual. And hashtag you are not alone.
Hashtag you are not alone. So stay tuned for
Bye.
the next episode. Bye bye, everyone. Bye bye, Aarti.